Welcome back to the other side. It has been a minute, and I know it. Trust me. I'm your spooky host, as always, ASOS, and I've got something chilling to kick us off with. I'm going to start off with an eerie photo that is shared in this paranormal group that I am a part of. Take a closer look at it. If you see anything unusual, always let us know down in the comment sections what you do see. Now, did you see anything? Did you not? Again, put it down in the comments. Let me know if y'all see it or whether y'all don't see it. Personally, it did take me a minute to really see it. And whether you guys believe that the photo is authentic or whether the photo you guys think that it's not, always take everything with a grain of salt. This photo was shared in a group chat with everybody, so of course, you never know. I truly do believe that there's something there. I'm always a big believer in the paranormal. I always try to take things more of a scientific approach and being like, well, maybe there could be this or that, but to me, that's like a solid photo proof of something that is definitely there. So now we're going to be looking at San Elizario, Texas, which is on the outskirts of El Paso. It's part of El Paso County, and this is the other side of Casa Ronquillo. Now, if I butcher any names, I know I'm Hispanic. However, I am not somebody who is a Spanish speaker. So, yes, I'm Hispanic, but the Spanish is not there, okay? I don't need the judgment. All right, so now let's get into the local legends tied to this photo and this location of Casa Ranquilo. It's also called Ellis House. The legend goes that there is a woman in white that silently haunts the grounds. Even local law enforcement has claimed to see her shadowy, elusive, and unforgettable silhouette. Now, this is a quick side note, though, just to pause really quick, that I do need to know what kind of ghost stories cops are hiding, because you know that they've seen something. I mean, a lot of cops work night shifts, a lot of cops work, weird hours. They go and they have different calls, and you never know what it is that they might be seeing during their shifts that they can't explain, that is paranormal, that is unusual, that is very unknown, that is the other side. And I would love to just, sit down with a cop one day, just be like, what do you see? What's the scariest thing that you've ever seen? Do you believe in the paranormal now that you have this job? Or as a cop, are you still very much like, no, like none of that exists, even though I've seen things? My dad, for instance, has worked graveyard shifts and has done security, and he has like a collection of stories, and he's always sent me pictures and things that he has seen from his night shifts while being a security officer at the schools and everything like that. It always gives me chills, and I always really find his stories fascinating, so I do wonder if other cops have them. But back to the tale. Now, the reason why I was bringing this up is because there is an account that involves two officers that were driving near the Ellis house. They saw a lone woman walking the old dark road leading up to the property. She didn't respond to their calls. No glance, no hesitation. She simply just walked towards the house. When she rounded the corner and disappeared, the officers had followed. However, they only found nothing, just an open field where she should have been. They're not alone, though. Others have also claimed to see her, always silent, always walking. Now, they also had, not only did they try to go around back and they tried to look for her, but they also tried to go inside the house and try to see maybe did she go in there. The house was locked. There's no way that she could get into the house. They searched the area, nothing. They could not find where this woman was. And that has been the consistent story with a lot of people who have seen her, is that they all say the same thing, is they'll follow her and they'll try to call out towards her, and she just does not respond back to them, and then she disappears and they cannot seem to find her, and it's always the same description of the same woman. So there is consistency to a lot of the local legends. Now let's get into the house's layers and why maybe it could be haunted, maybe why it has a spooky vibe, why it maybe have like a little bit of a history towards it. Now, it was originally built after the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. It is a 12-room hacienda shaped like a horseshoe wrapped around an ornate courtyard. Now, the cellar carries the name of Jose Yangaso Ronquillo. Now, that's where the original name of the house comes from. He was a Mexican army commander who has believed to lived there. The place has also been called many other names of the century, also known as the Vicero Palace, the Vizcal House, El Pisos. Sorry, again, my Spanish is not good. According to the Library of Congress. So all these names come from the Library of Congress. These are not names that people have made up for the house. Now, if we fast forward to the 1870s, when a wealthy businessman, Charles Ellis, this is where the current name of the house comes from, and his wife called it home. But during the Salt Wars of 1877, Ellis was dragged through the streets of San Elizario and buried in the courtyard of Casa Ronquillo. Now, let's pause here. If you're not familiar with the Salt Wars, because a lot of people are not, because that is very much an El Paso thing, and we know it all here. And even when I was in college, actually, as a history major, we read a book on it. The Salt Wars were a violent conflict in El Paso, Texas that was triggered by tensions and control over the salt deposits at the Guadalupe Salt Lakes. Greed, politics, and culture clashed and exploded into bloodshed. Now that we talked about what the Salt Wars was, the house became a motor inn in the 1930s, then later a one-room apartment, but time hasn't been kind. It has been abandoned since 1959, worn down by weather and neglect. Restoration efforts did begin in the 2000s, but the aura of the place still remains deeply unsettling. And let's not forget the local legend that some say the house dates back to colonial Spain and a Vicero buried treasure within its walls, which is also why it's been called the Vicero House. There is no historical proof, however, though, that any Vicero came to El Paso, but it hasn't stopped treasure hunters from digging the floors in search of gold or maybe even ghosts. Today, many avoid the house altogether. Too many stories, too many sightings. But for those brave enough to take a closer look, the other side is always waiting for you. Now, we're going to go into one last story. And this last story is going to be the hanging tree in San Elizario. Now, let me tell you this story. I only half remember it, but I've never truly forgotten it. It was one of those bedtime tales that my dad used to tell me and my sisters. Half warning, half a ghost story. The details, very fuzzy, but the feeling, that stuck. And if you grew up on the outskirts of El Paso in places like Socorro or in San Eli, you probably heard a lot of your own versions of these tales as well. Out there past the edge of town where the cotton fields stretched for miles and the streetlights were scarce, it got real creepy at night. We were always told, do not walk past the field when the cotton grows tall or the alfalfa grows tall. Why? Because somebody would be waiting for you to grab you and to take you into the fields. And maybe someone lived near the old pecan tree in San Elizario. Now, locals call it the hanging tree. It's a massive pecan tree that stands out in the valley, twisted branches, thick roots, and its reputation that outlived generations. According to the stories, it was the site of executions. Not just legend, though. That is a historical fact. Now, to back it up, during the late 1800s, when San Elizario was a county seat, Texas law required executions to happen at the county jail. But there was a catch to this. If a county did not have a proper jail facility, the sheriff had the authority to find another place to hang condemned criminals. Now, that's where that tree had come in. And the sheriffs back then had power, like borderline medieval levels of control. They could appoint citizens, even militias, to guard executions, not to stop them, but prevent mobs from infiltrating or rescuing condemned criminals. Now, that was a time, okay? Because imagine that happening today with the sheriffs. I mean, crazy. Now, this all came to an end, though, in 1923, thanks to Governor Pat Neff. So, shout out to old Pat for finally shutting it down. Took us until the roaring 20s to say, hey, maybe public executions in a pecan orchard is a bit much. But, you know, progress or progress. As they like to say, progress is progress. Some say that the Salt Wars, yeah, remember that from previous? I'm telling you, it was going to come back. or maybe I didn't tell you that it was going to come back and I was just letting it be a surprise. Who knows? But during the Salt Wars, it led to a lot of executions as well in the hanging tree. Remember how that guy got dragged out? Yeah. The hanging tree tied into the old Alice house as well. It all got connected there. And then there was a tale of Billy the Kid. Now, I know there's a lot of Billy the Kid stories out there, and there's a lot of people who say that there's no factual evidence to the Billy the Kid stories. But I always like to say there's a little truth to the Billy the Kid stories. There's some historical records that can be backed up factually. So, with the wild tale of Billy the Kid, who has supposedly broke into the San Elizario jail to free a prisoner named Maquiles Cigar, he was sentenced to hang as well. So, both of them. So, originally, his buddy got put in jail. He went to go rescue his buddy. Then he got caught trying to sneak into the jail, take his buddy out. They both were supposed to be hanged, but it never happened, and Billy the Kid escaped again. So, it's a big thing that Billy the Kid was in San Elizario. They do even have like a little statue of Billy the Kid out there, so just so y'all know. Now, today, if you visit San Eli, they take you on a ghost tour. Locals still claim to see shadowy figures lingering around the trees. Some swear that there are faces in the leaf. And while there are photos floating around online, I'm not really sold on those photos. Those photos, I will actually tell you, you know what? I don't believe it. But I won't bore you with those ghost pictures because this story is creepy enough on its own. And like a lot of lore out there, the line between fact and fiction, the tale changes depending on who you ask. But the fear of that tree has always been spine-chilling, especially if you walk past that tree late at night. Now, thank you for listening, and if you ever find yourself out in the valley near San Elizario, maybe don't wander too far from the road. We've got more stories coming, so stay tuned to that. And until next time, stay curious and maybe have your flashlight handy. And remember that the other side is always waiting for you. And as always, I'm your host, ASOS. Thank you.